As I grow older, I realize the importance of game preservation. Unlike movies, shows, books, etc., video games are harder to preserve. Most games are made with specific hardware in mind, which can be hard to emulate, which is why I feel that re-releases are important. However, a lot of companies seem to have a lack of interest in releasing a lot of these old games. General consumers can't pick up a lot of these games on modern systems and PC. So I want to bring to light some games that I feel like would benefit from being re-released. And if there's any games that you want to see re-released, let me know in the comments below. Let's get started. I don't think I ever talked about Sonic much on the channel. I was obsessed with him as a kid, and even still a bit now. It's far from my favorite franchise nowadays, but I still enjoy the games when they're actually, good. So, Sonic Unleashed. Unleashed was the first Sonic game that was part of the Boost era of Sonic, which is still technically going on to this day. So it's crazy to me that such an important entry in the series is still stuck on 7th gen consoles. It was not lucky to have a PC port. So with Sega saying that they recently want to port more Sonic games to modern systems, why not Unleashed? Now, to be fair, the only ports that Sega's really been doing for Sonic games are for the ones that are highly rated. And Unleashed had a mixed reception when it came out, mainly when it comes to the hot topic cash-in being the werehog. And yeah, even going back to play the game on my PS3, those sections are not the best, at least in my opinion. However, the sections where you're actually playing as Sonic, aka the daytime sections, feels so satisfying to me. I also think that for a modern port, you don't have to change much about the game. The game still looks super impressive to this day. There is one change that I want, and it's to the Sun and Moon medals. In order to continue the game, you need to collect them, and they're a bit annoying to get when you're going as fast as Sonic. I think a way to fix that is to either remove them as a required item to collect, or to have you collect less of them to continue. I don't know, I'm just spitballing ideas, I'm not a game developer. The only way to play Sonic Unleashed on a modern platform is very specific. You're gonna need an Xbox 360 version of Sonic Unleashed and an Xbox Series X. It is nice to have some way of playing it in recent times, but to be honest, not everyone has an Xbox, and also I'm not getting an Xbox solely for one game. But that's all that I have to say about Sonic Unleashed. I hope that in the coming years I can see this game finally be ported onto Steam. But for now, I guess I'm just gonna have to play it on my PS3 at 10 frames per second. Wow, this is a very different game to go to next. Asura's Wrath kicks ass. This game is both beautiful and insane, and it's a real shame that many people cannot play this game anymore. It's a game that makes you feel powerful, so think God of War, but not new God of War, old God of War. It fits into one of my favorite genres, and that's the character action game. Some examples of those games would be Bayonetta, Ninja Gaiden, and the originator of the genre, Devil May Cry. The game was a collaboration between Capcom and the talented company of CyberConnect 2, creator of games such as Tales Concerto, the Dot Hack series, and a bunch of anime games that I don't really care about. Though I think those earlier games that I mentioned do deserve modern ports as well, but let's get back on topic. Asura is a character that still lives on in recent times. Not only do I still see memes being made of the game, but also when Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite was revealed, I saw a lot of people request Asura. So clearly there's still a fan base out there for this game. And after playing the game myself, I have to agree, this game is awesome. And Asura would fit in a fighting game. In fact, he's fought fighting game characters in his own game. Capcom recently has been doing a better job of re-releasing their old games. We just got the announcement of Onimusha 2 of all games to get a new port, which is awesome. Very excited for the new one. Though, at least for right now, the only games that seem to be ported are 6th generation and below. The only exception that I know is when Dead Rising was ported on the PS4 and Xbox One. And besides, most 7th generation games are already on Steam, so not many people are requesting for them to come back. But it's criminal to me that Asura has been left behind. If Metal Gear Rising had a resurgence in popularity not too long ago, I feel that Asura can have the same effect. The game is full of crazy moments, just like Metal Gear Rising. So Capcom, please bring this game back. The youth need to experience peak. I don't play many racing games, but I do have some exceptions, and one of them is F-Zero GX. It's one of my favorite racing games ever, and I love playing them whenever I have my friends over. Mario Kart, eat your heart out. If you ever felt like you wanted to drive a car that felt like it was going constantly in Mach 9, this is the game for you. It's definitely not a casual racing game like Nintendo's other popular racing game series, Mario Kart. Mario Kart, I feel, has kind of replaced F-Zero as Nintendo's flagship racing game series, which is a shame because I don't see a reason why both of them can just exist at the same time. Nintendo does have another reason why they say they haven't made a new F-Zero game by now. They don't have any unique ideas that they want to implement for a new F-Zero game, which I don't fully understand, seeing how the fact that a lot of their franchises are very stagnant and haven't really changed much over the years. I just assume that they don't know how to top F-Zero GX because of how good it is. And they barely even made the game. This was a game made in partnership with Sega. But if we're not getting a new F-Zero game anytime soon, why not let newer generations experience peak F-Zero by porting F-Zero GX to the new Switch 2? It'd be okay, I guess, if they just made it a part of their Nintendo Switch Online expansion if they add GameCube games to it. But I'd much rather prefer if they just went on with a full remaster of the game like they did for Metroid Prime and the Pikmin games. I prefer not being tied to a subscription when I want to play video games. Captain Falcon's been a mainstay in the Smash Bros. Series since the beginning, and people associate him more with Smash than F-Zero. And that hurts me on the inside. If you re-release F-Zero GX with online multiplayer, that would also add a lot to the experience. So Nintendo, if you want to sell a billion Switch 2's units when they come out later this year, put F-Zero GX on it. Okay, I'm lying, I just want F-Zero back. The Switch 2's probably gonna sell a billion units alone off of the new Mario Kart. I just need to drive on Mute City one last time. Silent Hill is one of the most important horror game franchises out there. Without this series, Resident Evil and Alone in the Dark, I doubt that the survival horror genre would exist at all today. So it makes me upset when I go to the Steam store and the Silent Hill section looks like this. I haven't played the Silent Hill 2 remake yet, but I've heard that it's really good. And the less said about Homecoming, the better. But even though there's no doubt in my mind that the Silent Hill 2 remake is good, it's still not the original game. There is no reason why we can't have both games available to purchase now. Just do what Capcom did with the Resident Evil 4 remake and specify which version is the new one and which version is the old one. The original Silent Hill 2 is a masterpiece and deserves to be played by more people, so it shouldn't be buried away. And I know with the success of the new remake, Konami's probably gonna remake the other Silent Hill games, but I still want the original versions to be available to play now for anyone. At least the first 4 games. I know that the entries in the series that aren't made by the original Team Silent have a very mixed reception amongst people, and sometimes for good reasons. But the first 4 games are loved by many people out there, and people should be able to experience these masterpieces of horror, even when it's hard to take them seriously sometimes.
This town is full of monsters. How can you sit there and eat pizza?
When it comes to my favorite entries in the series, it's a toss-up between 2 and 3. They're both so good. And 1 and 4 are both good games in their own regards, even if they do have some flaws here and there. So all I'm asking for Konami is for the first 4 Silent Hill games to be available on Steam and modern platforms. Whether they are separate releases, like how they did with GOG before they were taken down, or if Konami did a collection similar to what they did to the Metal Gear Solid series. I just want more people to play these amazing games. I am thankful for 2 Remake for introducing people to this franchise that I love. So Konami, if you want to get more fans into this series, re-release these games. Originally, I was going to talk about Tekken here, but you can play some of the old Tekken games through the PlayStation Plus expansion. It could be better, but at least it's something. Instead, we're going to talk about another important fighting game franchise, and that's Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat is not just one of the most important fighting games ever, but one of the most important games ever. It's one of the reasons why we have the video game rating system that we know today. So it's crazy to me that you cannot play any of the Mortal Kombat games from 1 to 9. at least on modern systems. It's also crazy that you can't play any of the old Mortal Kombat games because Mortal Kombat is one of the fighting game franchises that has an ongoing story. I mean, most fighting games have stories, but Mortal Kombat prioritizes its story through marketing and stuff. Wouldn't it be nice for people to experience those old Mortal Kombat games and experience the stories for themselves? I know the series has technically been rebooted twice, but there's still elements from previous games that constantly get referenced in the newer games. Like, you probably wouldn't understand what's going on at the beginning of Mortal Kombat 9 if you didn't play Mortal Kombat Armageddon. And who's to say that the games that are currently important to Mortal Kombat's current story won't be delisted in the future so that you can no longer play those? After all, some of these games include guest characters, and copyright is a bitch. I know that there's a lot of people that have nostalgia for those original Mortal Kombat games and would love to play them again. And there's also a generation that grew up with the 3D era of Mortal Kombat games. With companies like Capcom and SNK preserving their old fighting games, I feel like Warner Brothers should do the same. Though that might be the problem. If you know anything about Warner Brothers, they aren't doing too hot nowadays. They got a lot of problems going on right now, especially with their game studios. So Warner Brothers, just like the other companies that are definitely watching this video, I have a proposition for you. If you want to make back all the money that you lost by dumping them all into live service games, just re-release every Mortal Kombat game that isn't available on modern systems. Even Mythology's Sub-Zero. Someone's gonna buy it. MadWorld is in a weird spot. It was one of the earliest games developed by the legendary studio known as Platinum, and it was released as a Wii exclusive, mainly to show that the Wii can have M-rated games, similar to games like No More Heroes and Red Steel. But I assume most people forgot about the game and only see it as a novelty, which is a shame because I think this game still holds up. Even though the game was made for the Wii, this game still looks impressive to this day. It was a really smart idea to go with this Sin City inspired art style, and whenever color actually does show up in the game, it just pops even more, whether it be blood or comic book inspired speech bubbles. Now, most of you would assume that the biggest problem with porting the game to modern systems is motion controls, but if you actually played the game, you would understand that this would actually be an easy problem to solve. Anything that involved motion in the game can easily be ported onto a button or with one of the control sticks. Think of it how No More Heroes did it for its most recent ports. And if you look online, people have actually made ways for you to be able to play MadWorld with a controller through Dolphin. So I imagine that it would actually be pretty easy to do. Earning points by making very creative kills is so fucking satisfying. Also, the soundtrack is underrated. Every song in this game is a banger. As you can tell, I love this game, so seeing this game being stuck on the Wii of all things is very upsetting. Platinum were the ones that made the game, but I assume Sega owns the rights to the games because they published it. And I say games because there was actually a sequel for MadWorld, which is a whole can of worms in itself that I may talk about in another day. I don't know if Platinum and Sega have to agree on something if the game were to be re-released. Maybe Hideki Kamiya has to show up and re-release the games himself. I don't know, this game's awesome and more people should play it. Out of all the games that I talk about in this video, this is probably the least likely to be ported. I don't know if the fan base is as big as the other games that I've talked about in this video, but that's probably why I want this game to come back the most. Because I'm sure that people now would go fucking crazy for a guy with a chainsaw hand. So I know that there are people in the comments already saying that you could just emulate all these games. And that's fair, most of the footage that I got for this video could only happen with emulation. It may be easy for you and me, but for most average consumers, it ain't worth the trouble. Also, not everyone plays on PC. Consoles can emulate, but you would have to hack it in order to do that. Also, not every game has the best emulation out there. There's a reason why I didn't have footage of Sonic Unleashed. The game is notorious for having terrible emulation. I just want these games to be preserved so that everyone can have access to them. There are more games that I could talk about, but I'll leave that for another video if this one does well. So, closing thoughts. Companies, do better when it comes to preservation, and also stop taking down emulators and ROM sites. Okay, thanks, bye!